to remove the very essence of our marasim. They will ask us in the grave, who was your prophet? A prophet is a guide. Who did I take as my guide? Who is it, where is it that I took my knowledge from? Did I look towards the life of the prophet? Or did I just try and listen to majlis after majlis and hope that that was enough? It's not enough. To gain Islamic knowledge, just sitting at the minbar is not enough. What I study 6 hours to give you within 1 hour, I can't give you those 6 hours. That's everyone's responsibility, to learn, to research, to understand the religion. They will ask us in the grave, who is your prophet? And I want to say what they told me to say, but because my life was lived in the dunya, not following the sunnah of the Prophet, not following the seerah of the Prophet, not acknowledging the greatness of the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet is Illa al-Ghayi. He is the purpose of existence. He is the ultimate role model of existence. Everyone looks towards the Holy Prophet for guidance. Everyone goes back to the Holy Prophet of Islam. Anyone that lowers the status of the Holy Prophet of Islam, not Shia, forget Shia, that person is not Muslim. Be wary that there are thoughts that have entered that try and lower the status of the Holy Prophet of Islam, that try and bring down the Holy Prophet. When Ahl al-Bayt, all they did was to rise and tell people of the greatness of the Holy Prophet. Who was your Prophet? Do I know the life of the Holy Prophet? Or do I only know the life of the Prophet through Amirul Mu'mineen, i.e. through Khaybar or Khandak? Do I know of the life of the Prophet, the seerah, the life he lived before he announced his prophethood? We believe that the Holy Prophet was a prophet from the start of creation, before even the creation of Adam. There isn't this come at the age of 40 he becomes a prophet. No, the Holy Prophet was prophet before all of existence even initiated. But do I understand that he is the source from which everything else emanated? In one of Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah says that I was a hidden treasure, I desired to be known, so I created you, O Muhammad. I created you. Recite salawat. I created you. And from there came the nur of Amirul Mu'mineen. From there came the nur of Sayyidah. From there came the nur of Hasanain Sharifain. From there came the nur of the Imams. But al-Ghayi is the Holy Prophet. In philosophy we talk about this. The purpose and the ultimate role model of existence as being the Holy Prophet. This movement that has started to lower the status of the Holy Prophet will cause problems not just in this dunya for us, but also in the akhirah. Because when Munkar and Nakir come to ask us, what answer will we give? The next question then Munkar and Nakir will ask is that what was your Qibla? Qibla is what? That place to which a person turns his attention to pray. We remind the mayyit to say that the Kaaba was your Qibla. When they ask you, say the Kaaba was my Qibla. I may face it when I pray, but where is my attention? The Qibla is the focus of one's salah, but I face it, but where is my attention? What am I thinking of? The Qibla is that source where I look towards every 5 times a day and pray towards it. But what was the focus of my life? What was the focus of my worship in the dunya? One of the signs of Akhir al-Zaman is that in a short hadith of the Holy Prophet, I don't want to go into all of the parts of it, but one of it is that the people of Akhir al-Zaman, وَنِسَاءَهُمْ قِبْلَتُهُمْ, their women will become their qibla. Their women will become their qibla. You look at society now, every marketing piece that happens, every time they want to market a product, they place a woman there. The objectification of women within society. The emasculation of men within society. That now a man no longer wants to fulfill his role, but rather would try and make himself more effeminate. Where is our qibla? They will ask us, where is your focus? What was your focus in your life? My career? Women? My children? What was my focus? So when they ask, the answer is Kaaba. The Kaaba was my qibla. But if my life wasn't lived with it in action, I won't be able to answer. The next question that Munkar and Nakir will ask, that who were your imams? And we say to the mayyat as we place it in the grave, that when they ask you, say it was Amir al-Mu'mineen, say it was Imam al-Hasan, say it was Imam al-Hussein ila akhir. We remind them, say every single one of the names of the imams. But for me, are they all equal in my eyes? Are they all equal in my eyes? I say yes, of course. My life sacrificed for all the imams. So then why are Masajid half, less than half, for the wiladat of Imam al-Jawad, for example, and 13th of Rajab? We have to ask ourselves. The wiladat of Imam al-Askari, lucky if people know when that date is. If we hold a majlis, a jashan on that day. But the wiladat, so we have in our minds big imams, small imams. But yet they are all equal. From start to end. So why is it that my life has become such that I pick certain imams over other imams? Why has the culture become such? So now when they ask me that who were your imams? Well, there were some that I used to attend for, others I thought, no, little imam. Shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we're all here. Shahadat of Imam al-Hussein, we're all here. Shahadat of Imam al-Kadhim to some extent. But Imam al-Radha, we start to slowly wane off. Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Hadi. Maybe we don't even know when their Shahadat dates are. How they died, who they were married to, who their mothers were. Then how will we answer? This is the reality. It's very difficult looking in a mirror and seeing one's flaws. But the only way to perfect oneself is to look in that mirror and stare very hard at it. to see where we're going with our lives. Who are our imams? Do I follow the seerah, the sunnah, the way of my imams or not? When I look at the sayings of my imams, I look at the way that they lived their lives, I look at the way that they had dealt with other people. Do I deal with fellow mu'mineen in that way? I don't have that sabr. Where on one side you have Imam al-Hasan, someone coming to him, swearing at him, your father was like this, your father was like this, your father was like this, you are like this, being his son. And the first thing that Imam al-Hasan says to him is, my friend, you look like you are a traveler. If you need somewhere to stay, our house is available. If you need something to eat, we can provide you. If you need money, then ask us, we will give you money. But I don't have an ounce of that seerah of the imams in my life. I don't have an ounce of that sabr in my life. The imams called towards aql. The imams, Amirul Mu'mineen says, Al-aqlu ma'ubida bihir rahman. The aql is that thing that takes a person towards ibadat. But I flipped everything on its head and I began to run myself through emotion. And the aql has become subservient to my emotion. What is the definition of jahl? What is the definition of ignorance? It's a person that's run by their emotion. A person that can't differentiate, can't sit with a cool head. A person that's run purely by emotion. That is a jahil. The imams came, they said, we've come to perfect the intellects. To take people towards that mi'raj of the intellect. And the more we've progressed and society's progressed, we've regressed. That now everything is but an emotional expression for us. In our day-to-day life, anger overcomes us. Our imagination overcomes us. Our desires overcome us. The last thing that is there is the intellect. That now when we hear something new, or something that goes against what we may have heard, the first thing we want to do is get angry, as opposed to thinking, maybe, let me ask. This is the sign of jahl. When the aql becomes subservient to the powers of the emotion. The imams were beings that took us towards that emotion. Took us towards that perfection of the intellect. And then emotions are tempered through it. Emotions are tempered through it. Let me give you an example that is tangible. They say, you cry over Sayyid-ul-Shuhada, one tear for Imam al-Hussein, yuhuttu dhunub al-idam. It consumes every single one of your sins, like fire consumes dry wood. Yes? That's just pure emotion. You hear the musibah of Abu Abdullah, you cry. Says it will consume all your sins. Minimum. Your sins forgiven. But now introduce the intellect. And now the hadith changes. Man baka ala al-Husayn arifan bihaqqihi. The one that does buka over Sayyid-ul-Shuhada, using his intellect, arifan bihaqqihi, understanding why Imam went to Karbala, understanding the maqsad of Sayyid-ul-Shuhada, understanding why he did what he did, understanding what he stood for, understanding why he told us to stay away from certain things, why he called us towards certain things. He says, now you cry over Hussein, understanding everything, wajibat lahul jannah, jannah becomes wajib upon you. There's a difference. There's a difference. Emotion and intellect. Come now for the ziyarah. Says Mandar al-Husayn Kamandar Allah fawqa arshih. The one that goes for the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah, it is as if he has done the ziyarat of Allah upon the arsh. We know Allah doesn't sit on an arsh. It's metaphoric. Says it's as if that person has done the ziyarah of Allah upon the arsh. And that's pure emotion. You've gone with pure emotion to Karbala. But now go and understand why Sayyid al-Shuhada went to Karbala. Understand why he stood for what he stood for. Understand the maqsad with your intellect. Comprehend it, digest it with your intellect. That pure intellect that Allah gave to man. Now you understand him. Now you know what he did. Now you know why he did what he did. Now you go for his ziyarah. وَجِبَتْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. The narration changes. Do we need more evidence for the use of the intellect? That Ali himself is saying, someone came to him and said that Muawiyah, look how aqil he is, how smart he is. That he's turned all of society against you. They think you're the bad guy. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, no, this is not aql. This is heel. This is nothing but deception. This is slyness. This is not the aql. Al-aqlu ma'ubida bih-Rahman. The aql takes you towards the ibadat of Allah. If our lives are not inclined towards Allah, the aql is not perfected. Rather, jahl has taken root in our life. We have become compounded in our ignorance. Do we understand our imams to be able to reply to Munkar and Nakir? Yes, these were our imams. These are the people that we followed. Because Munkar and Nakir will turn around and say, well, your life doesn't show that you actually followed them. Because an imam, what does Sayyid al-Shuhada write to the people of Kufa? We cry every year. Muslim ibn Aqil goes to Kufa, Muslim madhloom, Muslim alone, Muslim writes a letter, Muslim takes a letter. What was in that letter? No idea. Do we need more evidence that the aql has become subservient to our emotions? That I don't even know what I'm crying about. What is it that Imam writes to the people of Kufa? What is it that they write to Sayyid al-Shuhada? Why is it that he writes what he writes? His reply is explaining to them what an Imam is. فَلَا عَمْرِ مَعَ الْإِمَامِ إِلَّا الْعَامِلُ بِالْكِتَابِ والآخذ بالقسط والدائن بالحق والحابس نفسه إلى ذات الله. Says that the Imam is none but the one that orders from the book of Allah, is none but the one that establishes justice, is none but the one that establishes the religion and follows it truly. The Imam is none but the one that annihilates himself in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I cry for that letter, not knowing what was in it. I cry for Sayyidah Zainab, her khutbah, but I don't know what happened. That ma'rifah of Zainab, before she even says anything, is shown. That they're all making noise and no one's listening. They say from the top of the camel, she pointed towards them. فَأَرْتَدَّتِ الْأَنْفَاسِ وَسَكَنَتِ الْإِجْرَاسِ. Their breath stopped in their body, and even the ringing of the bells around the necks of the animals, all of them stopped, and then she spoke. This station doesn't happen without the intellect. What is her title? Aqilatu Bani Hashim. The intellectual one. The aqil. The aqila of Bani Hashim. And yet me as the follower of Ahlul Bayt, no inclination towards the aql, perfecting the aql, just run by raw emotion. Impossible. There's no way that I can answer it. I lower myself, I denigrate myself so much. I degrade myself so much. I sell myself so short. I have the paths to the heavens. Ali is saying, ask me, I will show you more the ways of the heavens than the ways of the earth. I have the ticket to heaven. But I want to run by emotion and think just if I call out to him, it will be enough. No, they require submission of the intellect. They require total submission of the intellect. The refinement of the intellect. We go for the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. We go for the ziyarah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. We take cloths and we rub them against the zari. We take our rings and we rub them against the zari. We take our tasbeehs, we rub them against the zari. We take our hats, everything, we rub them against the zari. For what? For barakah. And then we bring it back and we keep them inside a cupboard. And we tell people with pride that I rubbed this against the zari of Amir al-Mu'mineen. I rubbed this against the zari of Imam al-Hussein. I rubbed this against the zari of Imam al-Jawad. And people come and they kiss it. And people begin to respect it. We respect it. It falls on the ground. We become upset. We pick it up. We try and dust it off. We keep it in that cupboard. People ask us, offer us anything for these rings. And we say, no. They've rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada. I can't give it to you. I don't know when I'll have the opportunity to go again. This tasbih has been rubbed against all the zaris. I can't give it to you. I don't know when I'll have the opportunity to go again. This cloth, I can give you a little piece of it, but I can't give it all to you because it's been rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Brothers and sisters, a cloth that's rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada, a ring that's rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada, a tasbih that's rubbed against an inanimate object rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada becomes so muqaddas in our eyes. But what of this body that's rubbed against the zari? What about this body? What do I do with it? That piece of cloth, I don't allow it to get dirty. But this body that's rubbed against the zari of Sayyid al-Shuhada, I allow it to get dirty with sin. I allow it to get dirty with pride, with jealousy. We're walking along the path that is opposite to the path of the A'immah. How is that possible? How can we then meet our Imam? What is my connection with my Imam? I have connections with Sayyid al-Shuhada, I have connections with Amir al-Mu'mineen, but what about my living Imam? What is my connection with him? I recite in Dua Nudba, Azizun alayya an ara l-khalqa wa la tura. My beloved, I see all of creation around me and I know it exists because of you. Wa la tura. Where are you? Sayyid al-Shuhada was ghareeb, yes. But he had Abbas by his side, he had Ali Akbar by his side, he had Qasim by his side. Your Imam, he sits in the curtains of Ghaiba awaiting for us to be ready. He awaits for his Ali Akbar, he awaits for his Burayn, he awaits for his Zuhair, he awaits for his Habib. But we're not ready to give our lives for him yet. We're too busy absorbed in the dunya. Our Imam is more ghareeb. At least that Imam, he had his companions by his side. Our Imam sits in the curtains of Ghaiba and watches us fight amongst ourselves. How will I be able to face my Imam? When I look at my life, am I proud of it? And am I proud of it enough to show my Imam? Is that what my life? Is it enough for my Imam? Or is it that I don't have any connection with him? For me, he's a fairy tale that I tell my children. For me, he's an afterthought that I recite dua for. And I only call out to him when I have some major difficulties in my life. When I can't get it from anywhere else, then I turn towards him. Then I call out to him. He's awaiting me and you. Can I shed tears when I think about the separation with my Imam? Does my heart break that I cannot see the Imam of my time? That Asbaq ibn Nubata had the opportunity to be with Amir al-Mu'mineen. Salman had the opportunity to be with Amir al-Mu'mineen. But I have no opportunity. I don't have that chance with my Imam. I don't have the opportunity to sit with him and ask him the questions. Then how will I answer those questions of Munkar and Nakir when they ask me that who is your Imam? When my life hasn't been lived in servitude to my Imam. And then after these 6 questions have been asked, and if a person successfully answers them, they're asked 3 more questions. The first of those questions, that we gave you ni'mah in your life. We gave you blessings in your life. What did you do with them? We gave you the blessing of health. What did you do? We gave you the blessing of seeing, of hearing, of speaking, of smelling. We gave you the ability to touch and feel. What did you do with it? We gave you the ni'mah of a house. We gave you the ni'mah of children. We gave you the ni'mah of the air that you breathe. Did you do anything with it? Did you thank Him for it? Did you remember Him at every moment and realize that every step, every heartbeat that I take, it is only because of Allah? Did I ever thank Him for that ni'mah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to Nabi Musa, He says, Musa, thank me. He says, Ya Allah, I can't thank you. Allah says to him, Musa, I order you to thank me. Again, Hazrat Musa says, Allah, I can't thank you. Says, with all his might, he says, Musa, thank me. He says, Allah, I cannot thank you. Says, Musa, tell me why. He says, because, Ya Allah, for every word of thanks that I utter, I will need to utter another thanks in that you have allowed me to say the first thanks. The reply comes, Musa, the fact that you understand this point is enough thanks for me. That a person understands every word that they utter, every breath that they take, every movement that they make within their life, it is because Allah has allowed it, and it is a ni'mah. Everything has a right over us. What is it that we did with the ni'mah? What is it that we do with the ni'mah in our lives? He gave me the ni'mah of hands. Do I use these hands to feed the orphans? To feed the homeless? Or do I use these hands to hit fellow mu'mineen? How will I answer? اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم. That day we will seal their mouths. There will be no talking out of it. Their hands will speak to us as to what it is that they have done. We have various ni'mah in our lives. What is it that we did? What is it that we do? Munkar and Nakir will ask. The second question they will ask is that we gave you wealth. We gave you money in the world. How did you use it? What did you buy with it? Where did you spend it? The second part of a narration that I gave you a couple of days ago of the sixth Imam, where the Imam says, امتحنوا شيعتنا عند الثلاث, test our Shi'as at 3 points. عند مواقيت الصلاة كيف محافظتهم, at the time of Salah, see how they preserve the time of Salah. The second thing that the Imam says, وعند أموالهم, and test them with their wealth, see how they use it to help their fellow brother. Or is it that that wealth has become so dear to me that I can't let go of it? One of the wings that was given to kufr by Allah, metaphorically, is the one of miserliness. Bad akhlaq and miserliness. These are the wings of kufr. These are the wings of kufr. The person that has bad akhlaq, the person that doesn't know how to talk to people. In fact, the narration says, Sharrun Nas, the worst of mankind is that person who the people fear because of his tongue. It says, Mal'oon is that person. That the people stay away from him, because if we start him off, he's going to start swearing, he's going to start saying all sorts. We all know people like this. Says that this person is Sharrun Nas, the worst of mankind, that the people avoid because of his tongue. Falls under bad akhlaq, comes under bad akhlaq. Bad akhlaq is one of the wings of kufr. And the other wing of disbelief is the one of miserliness. The person that doesn't like to part with money, doesn't like to part with time, doesn't like to part with helping others. We can be miserly with our knowledge, we can be miserly with our wealth, we can be miserly with our time, we can be miserly with our advice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala orders Munkar and Nakir to ask about wealth. What is it that you did in this dunya with the wealth that we gave you? That he says, if you come and you give someone sadaqah, I'll give you 10 in return. You give someone sadaqah, I'll give you 10 in return. You give them qarzul hasana, you give them an interest-free loan, I'll give you 17 in return. Why? Because you're raising the person. You're not degrading them by giving them sadaqah. You say to them, this is for you, al-qarzul hasana, an interest-free loan. Get yourself out of this situation, pay me back. Then it's up to you if you choose to forgive it afterwards or not. But just those words of qarzul hasana will remove the pain from the heart of the believer. Hurting the heart of a fellow mu'min is one of the worst things a person can do. It's one of the worst things. And then being someone that cannot forgive. If someone's wronged me, you know what happens is someone wrongs me, I get upset, they finally build up the courage to come and apologize to me, and I say, no, Qiyamat, I'll see you on Qiyamat. Yeah? No forgiveness now. The beauty of mankind, the beauty of the mu'min is that he forgives. He forgives. Not only does he forgive, he has mahasin al-akhlaq, he has makarim al-akhlaq. Mahasin al-akhlaq, if someone does good to you, you do good to them. Someone does bad to you, you do sabr, you ignore them. Makarimul akhlaq is different. Someone does good to you, you do good to them. Someone does bad to you, you do good to them. This is makarimul akhlaq. Imam Sajjad is sitting there. He's sitting with about to eat. The slave girl comes, his servant girl comes. She's pouring water for the Imam. The jug slips from the hand and it strikes the head of the Imam. The head of the Imam cuts. The Imam looks towards her. She looks towards the Imam. Instantly upon her tongue she begins to recite the ayat of the Quran. وَكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. And they are the ones that swallow their anger. Imam says, I've swallowed my anger. وَعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. And they forgive the people. Imam says, I have forgiven you. Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. And Allah loves those that do ihsan, that do good. Imam says, go, I have freed you in the way of Allah. This is makarim al-akhlaq. Wealth. What will a person do with their wealth? Munkar and Nakir will ask. No matter how much you had or how little you had, what did you do with it? And then the final thing that Munkar and Nakir ask is that we gave you youth. Where did you waste it? What did you do with that youth that we gave you? Did you spend it chasing the dunya? Or did you spend it reforming yourself and praying Salatul Layl and making Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proud? Allah, the narration says that the angels of the heaven will say, Ilahi, what is this light that is emanating from the earth, that is illuminating all the heavens? Allah will say proudly that this is that youth, that creature of mine. In his young age, he stands to recite Salatul Layl in the middle of the night. We gave you youth. What did you do with it? Did you spend it in the pursuit of the best body and forget about the best soul? Did you spend it in the pursuit of getting the perfect selfie and uploading it to Facebook and Instagram to get the amount of likes that you need so that you could somehow feel that lowered self-esteem that you had? Why is it that we seek approval from others but yet forget the approval of the Lord? We take a selfie and we put it online, and then eagerly go on and log on to see how many likes did I get, how many comments did I get on it, how many people said MashaAllah, how many people said looking good. But every time I look in the mirror, I think to myself, yes, clean shave, I did this great beard line up myself, great job with my hair. Whereas thanking Allah for those good looks, thanking Allah for that ability to look so good, that becomes ibadat. You look in the mirror, you say, Alhamdulillah, Allah, you made me good looking. I thank you over and over. He will make you more better looking. Instead of seeking the approval of others for our looks, why not seek the approval of the one that will make us immortal? That these looks at this height of my youth that I care for so much, if I want to preserve them in the dunya and the akhirah, thank Him for it. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. You thank me for it, I'll give you more. What have I spent my youth in? وَأَبْلَيْتُ شَبَابِي فِي سَقْرَةِ التَّبَاعُدِ مِنْكَ. He said at the start of the lecture, Munajat Sha'baniyah, that I have wasted my youth in committing the crime. I've intoxicated myself, and in my youth in committing the crime of forgetting you. I don't remember Allah until times of difficulties come, until results day comes, until I know that my results are coming out, and then I sit on the musalla, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, I know I didn't study very much, but Ya Allah, please, this time just hook me up. Next time, inshallah, I promise I'll study. And then next exam results day comes, and again, Ya Allah, please, I know last time I promised, but I promise next time I will study, but just please get me a pass. That's what we use Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. What is it that I'm wasting my youth for? And then after these three questions, then the final question will be asked of the love of Ahlul Bayt. Tell us of your love of Ahlul Bayt. What did you do in this dunya out of the love of Ahlul Bayt? Love has many facets. Just crying for them isn't just love. That's one aspect of love. What is it that you did with your life? When the lover wants to please the beloved, they do everything in their life. They adjust their life in a way so that the beloved becomes happy. That the beloved becomes... When I look at what Ahlul Bayt want from me, do I find that in my life? Do Ahlul Bayt's teachings have an impact in my life? Do I look at the sayings of Amirul Mu'mineen and think, yes, Ali is saying do the mustahab fasts? Do I do them? Or do I dread Ramadan when it comes around? Mustahab to fast every Monday and Thursday, sunnah of the Prophet, sunnah of the A'immah. Mustahab to fast on the 13th, 14th and 15th of every Islamic month in Ayyamul Biyad, the days of light. Do I fast? My love of Ahlul Bayt, it requires imitation. The love requires imitation. The beloved or the lover always tries to imitate what the beloved wants. They know that the beloved likes a certain type of thing, so they try and act in that way. They try and buy that thing. They try and fulfill everything straight away. Then why is that love not present with Ahlul Bayt? We think, no, it's okay, it's fine. Why is that love not there between me and my Imam? And when the person, I said to you yesterday, when a person answers these questions successfully, Munkar and Nakir's their outward appearance begins to reduce. They go into a nice form. They push open the grave. A heavenly breeze enters the grave, and the person can see gardens and rivers. And Munkar and Nakir say, now rest here until you are raised again. This for you is your place. Anything that they want, streams are flowing, mansions are built for them, if they are able to answer these questions. But if their life was lived as a lie to the religion, just lip service to the religion, they're not going to be able to answer these questions. And when they are not able to answer these questions, that voice will be heard within the grave. Kadhiba abdi, my servant lies. And at this moment, when that voice comes, that voice of Allah saying, my servant lies, at that point Munkar and Nakir will become angry. Now the cloth on the fire, on the body of that individual will set on fire. He will begin screaming and begging. He will begin asking for them to forgive him. Fire will begin to fill the grave from every single angle, his skin peeling, his bones crackling under the heat, begging Munkar and Nakir to stop, begging Munkar and Nakir to give him an opportunity. But now there is no return, because that life of 60 or 70 years was lived forgetting Allah. Now there is no return. In the Akhirah, what's here for you is a pinch. In the Akhirah will be multiplied 1,000 times over. Now the fire of the qabr is not the fire here, but rather the fire here has come from the Akhirah. But before it could enter this realm, Allah ordered for it to be washed 70 times with water, cooled it down, then it was sent to earth. But now in the qabr, it is at its full heat. It enters from every angle angle. This person begins begging Munkar and Nakir. That trauma that he has in his mind, the feeling that is increased. Now Munkar and Nakir pick up their maces. They say they strike him over the head 3 times. This individual whose narration we are narrating says to Salman that, Salman, by Allah, if a single strike of the mace of Munkar and Nakir had fallen on the mountains of Mecca, the mountains would have become dust. The other narrations say that if all the jinn and men were to gather together in order to try and withstand one strike of Munkar and Nakir, they would all perish under that strike. None of them would be able to withstand it, even with their combined force. The narration says 3 times Munkar and Nakir strike the head of this sinner, and that with every strike, fire begins to enter from every corner of the grave. And if that wasn't enough, now 99 snakes enter the grave, one wrapping around the head, crushing the skull, others biting. They say that if a single drop of the venom of the snakes of the grave was to fall upon the earth, every single one of the inhabitants of earth would perish. Not a single blade of grass would ever grow upon the earth. 99 of these snakes enter the grave, begin crushing this individual. Now he's trying to call out. Now he's trying to hope that someone will listen to him. But now there is no reply. There is no return. For this is the barzakh. His time has passed. And as this is going on, then one other azab begins as well. That is known as the fishar-e-qabr. This is now when the walls of the grave begin crushing inwards. For the believer, the sixth Imam says, very few people in this world will be saved from the fishar-e-qabr. Very few people. For the believer, it will come in and hug him like a tight hug and then release him. But for the sinner, the grave's walls will go and crush until they say that the ribs, the bones of the ribs are crushed into each other. The head begins to become crushed under the weight of that fishar. And there are certain sins that cause the fishar-e-qabr. There are certain sins that guarantee that your bodies will be crushed within the qabr. Those we'll talk about tomorrow. As well as the other aspects of the life in the barzakh. It's a difficult journey. One that we all have to prepare for, one that we all have to get ready for. We need to ask ourselves, how ready are we for that journey? How can we answer the questions of Munkar and Nakir if we reflect on our lives? Will I truly be able to answer those questions? Or is it that I have set myself a pit of vipers and a pit of fire in the grave? We'll talk about those sins that cause fishar-e-qabr, and then we'll also talk about the solutions that will help a person on the first night in the grave tomorrow. But one of those things that comes to aid a person in the akhirah are tears for Aba Abdullah. The fifth Imam says that a single tear shed equivalent to the wing of a mosquito in the memory of Sayyid al-Shuhada will create a shield for that person from the fire of hell. It will create a shield. And why should not one cry? as we have relayed what has happened to Ahl al-Bayt over the last few nights, there is nothing but for an individual to cry, where they don't spare a young son, they don't spare his nephew, they don't spare the 6-month-old child. They don't even spare the 4-year-old daughter of Abi Abdullah. This child, in that short journey to Sham, so much befell her, so many difficulties befell her, that she never made that journey back home. That all Ahl al-Bayt left, but she was left there within Sham. This daughter of Abi Abdullah, her musibah, where do we start her masa'ib from? Do I start her masa'ib from the 7th of Muharram when the water was cut? Or do I start her masa'ib from that final wida of Sayyidul Shuhada when she runs out towards her father? Ya abata istaslamta lil maut. Father, have you submitted to death? And her father turns around to her and says, Sakina, where can a person go? What else can a person submit to who has no one else by his side? And then she begins to cry, and he turns to her, he says, Sakina, don't break your father's heart. Don't burn your father's heart with your tears. My daughter, be patient. My daughter, for there is much time for you to cry on this journey that is ahead. My daughter, if you find me lying upon the plains of Karbala and the veins of my neck cut, my daughter, do not weep. My daughter, do not cry. Do I start her masa'ib from there? Or do I start her masa'ib from Asr Ashur, as she too tried to view her father's body as it lay in the plains of Karbala? Or do I start her masa'ib from Sham-e Ghariba? That Sham-e Ghariba, that Zainab and Kulthum go out into the battlefield looking for her. They can't find her. They find her lying upon the chest, those broken ribs of a chest, that chest that has been trampled by the galloping horses. They find her lying there. They try and wake her. They say, Sakina, Sakina, time for you to go back. How is it that you know whose body this is? This body has no head on it. She says, Auntie, when I ran out into the battlefield and I was crying out for my father, this body cried out, Ilayya, Ilayya, my daughter, come to me, come to me. Do I start her masa'ib from there, or do I start her masa'ib from the burning of the tents? That she comes running out and she's presented along the way by a man by the name of Khuli, and Khuli does such an action to this girl that later on Hamid ibn Muslim narrates that I saw a girl running from the burning tent. Her clothing was on fire and I saw that her ears were bleeding. I approached her. She said to me, we are the daughters of Rasulullah. Do not approach me. He says, I just wish to extinguish the fire on your shirt. He extinguishes the fire on her shirt. Then she says, Ya Shaykh, you have been so good to me. Do me one other favor. He says, what is it? She says, tell me, which way is Najaf? He says, what is there in Najaf? No one knows. Amirul Mu'mineen is buried in Najaf. Only Ahl al-Bayt at this point. She says, I wish to go to Najaf to complain to my grandfather Ali. This daughter of Abi Abdullah, where do we start her masa'ib from? Where do I start her musibah from? What do I recite? What difficulties of her do I recite? That when Khuli returns home that night and he says, I have the head of Abu Abdullah, and I enter Kufa and I place the head of Abu Abdullah in the tandoor of my house. I shut the lid of it and I go inside the room, and now I get into my bed. My wife turns to me, she says, Khuli, where were you? Khuli, you've been gone for a couple of days. Where were you? He says, doesn't matter, leave me be. I'm tired. I'll tell you at another time. Let me sleep. Some short moments pass, both sleep. Khuli is then awoken by his wife crying. She says, Khuli, tell me, where did you go? He says, why? What is it to you? She says, Maloon, tell me, what is it that you did? Why is it that Zahra is coming in my dream? And she's saying, what is it that my Hussein did? What is it that my Hussein did to your Khuli? But then she says, why is it that he took that which he took from us? She says, Khuli, what did you do? He says, we fought against some people. Yes, it was Hussein ibn Ali. I brought his head, I placed it in the tanur. He says, then she says to him, what else did you take? What is it that Zahra is asking for? He says, under my pillow you will find 2 earrings. He says, as the tents burnt, I saw a young girl come running. I saw it was the daughter of Hussein. As she came running towards me, I saw in her ears she was wearing 2 earrings. I said to her, take out the earrings, I want them for my daughter. He says she began to try to remove them. She was afraid. Her hands were shaking. She tried to remove them. She was afraid. Her hands were shaking. I was impatient. I reached forward. I pulled them from the ears of the girl. Do I start her Masjid from there? Or do I start a Masjid from when the water is brought to Ahlul Bayt in Sham Ghariba and they wake her up and say, Sakina, Sakina, drink the water. He says, Aunt Zainab, why are you giving it to me? Why are you giving it to me first? Says Sakina, it is our culture that we give to the youngest first to drink. The child, she takes the water, she runs out to the plains where the tents used to be. Says Sakina, where are you going? She says, Aunt, you said yourself, the youngest must drink first. My brother Ali Askari is still thirsty. I don't know when it is this child drank. I searched the maqatil. The first incident, this water came and she ran towards the grave of Ali Asghar. Along the way, they say water would be brought to her and she would run towards Sayyid Sajjad and say, the chains of my brother Sajjad heat under the sun of the desert, and she would pour the water on the chains of her brother. She would reach Kufa and they would ask her to do dua. She would ask for water, they'd bring dua. Sayyida Zainab would say, Sakina first given to pray for their dua. But it doesn't say whether the child drank the water or not. Along the way, they say that there was a time when Shimr and all his army stopped in a place, and Shimr began giving water to his companions, and this daughter of Abi Abdullah was looking towards them, and Shimr looked towards her. He says, do you wish to drink from this water? She says, yes, I do. I'm so thirsty. He says, you will drink, but only after all my army has drank. You know how anticipation builds within a child, especially those fathers that have daughters, those daughters that you promise something to, how they anticipate you, that when you go to work and you said that you will bring it for them when you return, and when you enter from the house, and how they run towards you in order to get that thing that you promised. Now he's giving water to all his army. This child of Abu Abdullah is looking towards him, and after he has given water to all the army, he turns towards her. He says, you wish to drink? She says, yes, I'm still thirsty. He opens the bag of water, he empties it upon the earth. The daughter of Abi Abdullah, they say Sakina ran. She ran to where the water was and she placed her cheek on the wet earth. The musibah of this girl. Do we start it from that night in Sham when she sees her father in her dream, and she wakes up and begins to cry, and they say, why is the girl crying? And they say she remembers her father. And they bring the head of Abu Abdullah inside. And now Sakina runs towards the head of her father. This daughter that has been looking at the head of her father from Karbala, in Kufa, in Sham, wishing to hold the head of her father. In Kufa, she sees it reciting Quran, but the Kufans stone it. She sees it reciting Quran in Sham, but they stone the head of Abu Abdullah. She sees the head of Abu Abdullah in front of Yazid, and he's hitting the head of Abu Abdullah with the stick that he has in his hand, saying, Hussein, what nice teeth you have. Hussein, what nice lips you have. This daughter watches it. She's begging to see her father. This is pain in her heart. Now when the head of Abu Abdullah comes to her, she runs towards it. She takes the head of her father and she begins to recite her marthiyah. She says, Abata, man alladhi aytamani ala sighri sinni. Father, tell me who made me an orphan at such a young age. Abata, man alladhi qata'a waridayk. Father, tell me who cut the veins of your neck. Father, tell me who covered your face in your blood. Father, along the way they would slap us, but Father, no one was slapped more than our Aunt Zainab. Every time they wanted to slap us, she would stand in the way and say, don't slap the children of Abu Abdullah, slap Zainab instead. Father, they kept us thirsty. Father, they whipped my brother Sajjad. Father, after you, the women have only to say wa ghurbata. Father, the women have all to say that they are alone. They have nothing, no one by their side, Father. They say the girl lay down with the head. She placed her lips on the lips of her father. She continued to whisper to her father until a voice was heard. Ilayya, ilayya, fa'ana laka bil intidhar. Come towards me, my daughter, for I am waiting for you. Sajjad comes inside, sees the head on one side, the girl on the other. He moves forward towards his sister. The moment he touches her, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ala la'natullah ala al-qawm al-zalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. Pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of our parents. Oh Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Those of our parents that have left this world, give them a place next to Ali Muhammad in Jannah. Oh Allah, those who are ill, give them shafa'ah. Ya Allah, those that have brought hajat, that have sorrows, that have difficulties in their life, for the sake of what moment? How does Sajjad bury his sister? How does one who is chained up bury his sister? They say years later an alim saw in his dream that Sakina was saying, Alim, my grave is filling with water, move my body. He says, I saw the dream 3 times. The 3rd day I sent my daughters to go and move the body of Sayyida Sakina from its place to where it is buried now. He says that they went along with some of the women. Then when my daughters returned towards me, they began to address their father. They said, Father, you told us Sakina was madhluma. Father, you told us she was oppressed. Father, you told us she was alone. For those that have yet to shed tears over this daughter of Abu Abdullah, this line for them. Those that have hajat, this line for them. Those that have difficulties and sorrows, for the sake of the difficulties of the daughter of Abu Abdullah, they come, they say, Father, you told us she was madhluma. Father, you told us she was alone. Father, you told us that she was imprisoned when they buried her. But Father, you never told us that when they buried her, her ropes were still tied to her body. Ya Allah, for the sake of that daughter of Abu Abdullah, fulfill everyone's hajat. Those that have sorrows, remove their sorrows, ease their difficulties. Ya Allah, those who are in debt, clear their debts.
Ya Allah, keep our ulama and our maraji at the head of our institutions. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to be amongst his true muntadhareen, his true awaiters. Matame Hussein.